Thank you. So as you know, we're using this for our project, and we're going to, put on our website. So again, just a little brief reminder, how I got into this project really was as part of our digital narratives course. We were asked to go into the university campus and just see if there's something that, we find a placard or some memorial. And we went to the alumni house, myself and my friend Karina, and we saw this information about William Welfare Howard and Mildred E. Jones being the first two Black students in the 1900s. And I was really taken aback because I didn't think about it, And then part of our research, we've discovered that after they graduated, well, Mildred graduated, in 24, there were no other Black students until the 1950s. Huge gap.
Yeah.
So, and just to think that they actually came on board during that time when there was segregation, equal, but, separate but equal, and they broke that barrier down. And because of them, you're where you are, you're on their shoulders. I'm here too, although I'm not from the States originally, but, I can attend because somebody took, fortitude and decided, I'm going to do this. So we're here today. So we're part of their legacy.
Yeah, of course.
So I just want to thank you so much for coming back and just being able to share your story and helping us to really push the narrative forward about Blacks and their involvement on campus and how they've helped to shape the campus to a degree, So it's very informal in that, we're going to start off with you just introducing yourself, your major, where your graduating class, and then from there, I'll just ask you some questions and hopefully, if you feel you can answer those questions, but there's no pressure, just your experience as a Black student, female student in particular, on campus. So thank you so much for joining us. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Chinwe Ohanele. I'm a 2010 graduate of the College of the Pacific. I graduated with a double major in economics and philosophy and a minor in pre-law. So definitely left brain, right brain. After graduating from Pacific, I went on to Loyola Marymount University for law school, where I got my JD. I'm now practicing as an attorney in Southern California, and I'm licensed in California, New York, and New Jersey. I run my own practice where I provide business, legal, and intellectual property services to my clients who are mostly entrepreneurs who are looking to push forward some kind of mission or purpose that they feel passionate about.
That's so amazing, absolutely amazing. Would you say that your time in a predominantly white college has allowed you to be able to work well in the field? You're not just servicing one aspect of the national, of people, one demographic. You're servicing all demographics. So how did you apply what you experience here at ULP into the real world scenario?
So I would say, I was an RA on campus. I was an RA for 2 years in Southwest and in Grace Covell. And because I was an RA, you deal with people from different backgrounds, and you have to be able to sometimes do some crisis management at various times. But it was an interesting opportunity to really just interact with people from different backgrounds. And in addition to that, I was a member of, I don't know if it exists yet still, but Black Campus Ministries. So I was a member of Black Campus Ministries, and I was I was a student member of the Black History Month Committee, and also pretty active with the Multicultural Center, and did a lot of events in partnership with various affinity groups. And so I think, college is a lot kind of like a choose your own adventure game, where depending on, what organizations you're part of, what clubs and classes you take, that can really shape your experience. And so for me, I think I ended up choosing a very culturally rich experience, because I wanted to interact with people who were from different backgrounds, who had different mindsets and understandings. And I think that that was helpful because now, I have a diverse client base. I can't say that it's 100% Black or Latinx or API, but I do have clients from all of those backgrounds. And so I think that experience from Pacific probably really helped with my sensitivity to different cultures.
I think that's great. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all human beings. That's the main thing that, connects us all together. So I think that's a wonderful way of being able to adapt your experiences on campus, being involved in all those different areas, and then taking it into, the other real world, because this was still real world.
Right.
Just a different, partition of it, as it were.
Right.
As an African-American female on campus, did you ever experience, to your knowledge, any biases, do you think?
So I think the biases that I experienced were kind of like backhanded compliments. So I entered the university in the honors program. And I actually ended up leaving the honors program after the first year because I don't think that at the time they did a great job of really highlighting the benefit of it. It just felt like I was taking additional courses just to take them. But I remember my first, I don't know if we were taking a tour as the honors students, like of our dorms, but I guess someone remembered my entrance essay. And so when they heard my name, they're like, "Oh, are you Chinwe?" I was like, "Yeah." And, they were like, "Oh, your entrance essay was so moving." And there was something about that response that, I mean, I'm an immigrant. And so obviously what I was talking about was my experience growing up in the US as an immigrant, when a lot of people don't assume that you're an immigrant being a Black woman. And so I think that there was a level of, oh, wow, how impressive, how, unique, how exotic, which some would say, oh, that, people just appreciate it. But I do think that sometimes in some environments, it's like, you're a unicorn. Like there couldn't possibly be other people like you. And it's like, actually, no, there are plenty of other Black women who are articulate, who, speak well. I was also part of speech and debate, and that was another thing. There are barely any Black people in the speech and debate circuit. And you just find a lot of times that people are overly impressed by your abilities and things like that. So I would say that's definitely something that I saw. The other thing I would say is I started as a pharmacy major. So the primary reason I went to Pacific was because I got into the accelerated program and I was in the 3+3 program. And when I had issues with some of the classes, I felt like I wasn't getting support. I remember this was the straw that broke the camel's back. I had a chemistry course, and it was one of the general chemistry courses that, has hundreds of students in it. And I remember doing the assignments and struggling. And I reached out to the professor and I said, "Hey, can I come into office hours? I just have some questions about, some of these assignments. Maybe I'm missing something." And so I made the appointment and I showed up. And there was this other young white kid. I don't ever remember seeing him in class. And he was seated there. And I didn't know if he had an appointment or not. But when the professor opened her door, she spoke to the young man first, even though I had an appointment for that time. And when I persisted, I said, "Well, I have an appointment for this time." The professor looked at me and said, "Well, have you done the assignments? Because if you do the assignments first, I'm sure you shouldn't have a problem." And I was like, "I did all of the assignments and I'm trying to get some understanding." And the professor was like, "Well, you'll have to wait." and took the young man inside. And I was seated outside for maybe 20 or so minutes before I was just like, this is ridiculous. And I left because, sure, I'm a student and you're the professor, but if I've put in the time to learn the material to my level best and I'm reaching out for assistance, I should at least be directed to some resource. And I just wasn't. And it wasn't until I went to the dean of the pharmacy school to say I was leaving the pharmacy school because I had to get her approval to switch from College of the Pacific, or from the pharmacy school to the College of the Pacific. And she was like, oh, we really don't want you to leave. How can we support you? And I was like, the time to support me has passed. I'm in my second year. I'm not on track to, finish the courses I need to move on to pharmacy school. And the people who were supposed to help me just weren't there, and she's like, well, what are you going to do now after you move? And I was like, I'm going to become a lawyer. And she's like, well, you can get a first degree in pharmacy and then go and become a lawyer and do all this stuff. And I mean, sure, I could have become a patent attorney and maybe that would have been a more lucrative direction. But for you to be giving me this advice and this feedback at the point that I have made the decision to leave the College of the Pacific, the pharmacy school, and there wasn't any direction or support before that, I think is just too late. And I think part of the reason why she was fighting so hard was because I think I was the only Black student in our entering pharmacy class.
And I want to ask that question actually, because that's one of the things on our journey throughout this research is that Black people are more represented in certain areas, but not in others, and so those engineering and pharmacy, what is it like? So thank you, because that was part of my question. And I too identify with some of the issues that you've shared there about not necessarily being seen.
Yeah.
So yes, yeah, I do. So that was that experience, but then you've obviously moved on and you've majored in, just remind me again, economics, philosophy.
And philosophy, yeah. And then pre-law minor.
Pre-law. So you've obviously shined. So did you feel that you got assistance when you moved over into these new areas? Sorry.
I think that what was great about when I moved over to the College of the Pacific had more to do with who I was assigned to for my advisors, and I think less to do with the college itself, because I do know that there are other students who were Black or minorities who were in the College of the Pacific and didn't necessarily have the same experience as I did. And part of that was, with the pharmacy school, each professor has maybe 12, 15 students that they're advising. But in the college, because it's one of the biggest colleges, you have one professor, maybe they'll have 30, 40, 50 students that they're advising. So there isn't time to really have a conversation about, well, what do you want to do? Or what are you hoping to do? Or what kind of courses have you felt you succeeded at? That sort of individualized attention. But I was lucky because in the philosophy department, my advisor was Eleanor Woodruff, and she was also one of the professors that I had, I think, before I even switched out of pharmacy, because philosophy and economics were actually, the courses were electives for the pharmacy program. So that's how I got exposure. I took them, I think, my second semester of my first year, and I really liked them. And then I decided that I was going to take some of the courses that I needed for the pharmacy school over the summer so that I could sort of get a little bit ahead. And when I took those courses over the summer, I still enjoyed it. So having Professor Wittrup and then, what's his name? The head of the economics department, I can see his face in my head. He has like a really long white beard. He kind of looks like Santa Claus. He's very friendly. And even though I knew he had a lot of students that he was advising, he gives you that time, right? He'll ask you, what are you working on? What's your trajectory? It wasn't obviously as in depth as some of the other as what I experienced in pharmacy, but at least you could tell he was trying. And I also think that what helped me was the fact that I was doing well in those classes and I showed up and I asked questions and I was engaged. And so I think that helped because then the professors were like, okay, this is someone who's really interested and engaged. We're going to support her. And so I got a lot of that support. I would say more support from the philosophy than the economics department, just because I may have been one of the only Black students in the philosophy department, like if I'm being honest. So I think there was just a lot of encouragement to the point where my philosophy professors were saying that I should have gone to do a PhD in in philosophy when I was considering law school, but I didn't want to take the gap year to do like research. So, I went on to do law school, but I really think my experience in the College of the Pacific had more to do with who my professors were and who my advisors were. Yeah.
Right. So if you were going to advise any, I'm going to be more specific, African American females or Black females attending UOP, what would you advise them to help them to kind of overcome some of the possible issues they may have, or just to be successful in their college career?
I think that if you can develop a relationship with at least one professor who you feel like you can be your authentic self with, that will go a long way. Because one of the first professors who I really connected with was Professor Hernandez, who is she's in the College of the Pacific, but I think she's in the sociology department or ethnic studies if they rolled them into each other. And she taught this class called Race, Gender, and Ethnicity. Oh, is that me or you?
I think it's you. Okay, hold on.
Hold on. I don't know where that is coming from. That's so bizarre.
Oh dear.
I literally have no clue where that's coming from.
Neither, I don't have any calls coming from. Oops.
That was so strange. I've never seen a call come in on my phone or in my computer and not on my phone. That was so strange. My apologies.
That's okay. That's okay.
Wow. Okay, that was strange. Yeah, so she was a young professor. She just graduated with her PhD. I think Pacific was maybe her first or second position. And I remember, I think she was in like her late 30s or something. So she was so cool. I was like, she's a Black woman and she's young and she's a professor and she's so smart. And I did well in her class. And so anytime I was having any issues, she was always kind of the person that I would reach out to. And then of course, Professor Wittrup down the line, but I would definitely say, as you're going through classes, see if there are professors who you feel like really see you and understand you. And then if your advisor or the professors in your major aren't supportive, you can go to them and ask, how can I navigate this?
Right.
Because there's a level of politics for professors too, and they sort of understand how these things work. And so they can sort of point you in the right direction when you're feeling kind of lost.
Wow, thank you so much for that. That's really very helpful information, really, to share. I think we come into college and we're not quite sure what to expect, and then we hit the road running and we're like, there's no time, so it's kind of difficult. I just think actually a couple of more things. You double majored and minored, yet you were involved in Black Campus Ministries, student Black History Club, Multicultural Center, Speech and Debate.
Yeah.
Where did you find the time to study? and do all these things.
Yeah, and I didn't even mention that for my last 2 years, I was a part of arts and entertainment. I was the event coordinator my junior year. Um, so I operate well when I'm busy. I don't really like having just like empty time. I'm kind of like that even now. Like I run my own law firm, but I have a bunch of other things that I do on the side. And I think I don't know if it's necessarily like a healthy thing, if I'm being honest, but I just function well when I have a lot of things that I'm juggling. Um, so like, for example, I had two part-time on-campus jobs. And so I would, yeah. And my last year it was three actually, because I worked at the university center too, when it first opened. But I think for me, I'm very, schedule oriented, like I'd use my calendars, I'd use my planners. And so, I would do my homework and when I had downtime, I would read and review and I just kind of made it work. And, I had to pay for law school applications, which is part of the reason I had 3 jobs my last year. So you also know what you're working towards, right? So I think that once you're kind of clear on your objective, you can make the time. I will say that I graduated just short of honors. Like I think I had a 3.4 something. And I don't know necessarily if I had worked less, I would have graduated with a higher grade, because part of that was also moving from the pharmacy program over to the College of the Pacific. So those grades were usually lower than the other courses. So I do think that was part of it. So if there's one thing that maybe I might be frustrated about, is the fact that I didn't graduate with honors. But then at the end of the day, like no one asks you, nobody cares after you're done, you start working. Yes. Nobody cares if you graduate with honors. So
you graduated, that's the main thing. And you did
exactly.
You're saying 3.4, that's still a very good, still really good achievement. So congratulations on that. My last thing for you then would be a quote, something that encouraged you, something you heard or read that you'd like to share to encourage our other students coming in.
So this isn't a quote that I've heard, but I'm going to try and condense it. Okay. So I'm Christian, and I believe that everyone is given a how am I going to say this? Okay, so if you have been given a vision, right, then it's your job to bring it to light, no matter who believes it or understands it, because it's not their job to understand it. The vision was given to you, right? And so part of faith, part of working towards that destiny is believing enough in that vision that even when you can't see, the fruits of your labor, that you continue moving forward, because that's your job, to bring that vision to life.
Wow. That's amazing, powerful words. Thank you so much. I think that we forget it. You're actually bringing tears to my eyes. We forget sometimes. We get so lost in everything that's going on that we think the words keep coming, I can't. When in fact, with God, all things are possible. So you can. Yeah. Because he gave you the vision in the first place. So yeah. Powerful words. Thank you so much for your time. You are a busy lady. And do you ever plan on coming back to UOP at all as an alum?
I was the Black alumni president for oh yeah, that's how I know Marche. Right at when Ricky Boylan stepped down, I think I was the second or the third Black alumni president, and I was the president for 3 years or something. So I was actually on campus quite a lot. I haven't been on campus recently because I live in Los Angeles. And so I'm just not around that often. But I mean, I'd love to come back. One of the things I'm hoping to do is I want to do more speaking and encouraging, because I feel like, my experience is kind of unique. Of all the lawyers in the US, Black attorneys make up 3%. And in my particular profession, 1% of all attorneys are intellectual property attorneys. So if 1% is IP attorneys and we only make up 3%, there's barely like, you know what I mean? So I've had to sort of operate in heavily white dominated spaces, heavily male dominated spaces. And I feel like when you're young and in college, it can be intimidating and it can be a little frightening to figure out, how can I navigate these spaces? But at the end of the day, you navigate it like you navigate every other thing, one day at a time. And just making sure that you have the right people around you for those days when you are struggling or you can't sort of see the light at the end of the tunnel. So yeah, hopefully I can come back and, do more stuff like that, because, I've been gone for a while. I graduated 2010, but yeah.
Have you back. If ever you are, I have your email and maybe we can stay in contact, and I'd love to have you back. And yeah. So
yeah, of course.
I appreciate your time so much. Thank you for making the time, busy lady. And I'm in awe of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you for, reaching out and connecting with me. This was fun.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. You have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you so much. Oh,
bye.